All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Confessional social media. Women confess immoral behavior, vice and sin for clout. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now, links in description. Men are being gaslit into extinction. How feminine logos, white fragility, and the service class con job are erasing male reality. One tip, one setback, one lie at a time. They told me I was broken because I refused to cry on command, that I lacked emotional intelligence because I didn't join HR's latest vulnerability workshop in lockstep, that I was toxic, not for violence, not for cruelty, but for daring to think, to lead, to endure. I was 34, trapped in a corporate training room, listening to a woman half my age with no leadership experience preach to me about masculine healing while outside real men were dying in silence. Veterans, fathers, sons, because society has turned strength into sickness and elevated fragility as virtue. The suicide rate for white men. Highest in the nation, CDC data doesn't lie, but try applying for a mental health grant as a man. Watch how quickly you're labeled part of the problem. Meanwhile, women post "I'm not okay" on Instagram and are showered with roses and messages from eager admirers. Real pain goes unseen. Staged suffering gets applause. And that's the first lie you've been sold. That feeling is deeper than doing. That tears equal insight and silence equals damage. Schopenhauer saw this coming. He called women the mediators of evil, not from hatred, but because he grasped their role in the erosion of civilization. He didn't despise women, he despised the myth that they are morally superior, emotionally truthful, or inherently caring. The Ashley Madison breach confirmed it. 70% of those seeking affairs were men, lonely, rejected, aching. 80% of female users were either bots or married women collecting leverage. That's not connection, that's combat. And while you were being lectured to check your privilege, your marriage was being bartered in the emotional underground of female hypergamy. Sweden, that feminist dreamland, now has men living in basements, severed from their children, punished for simply being men, while the state funds gender equality events that train girls to despise boys before they can read. This is an advancement. This is ritual destruction on the shrine of female-centered fantasy. I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to make you see, to shatter the illusion, to show you that when a man slips a janitor 20 after midnight, he's not showing off kindness, he's being kind. When Elon Musk logs 120-hour weeks, he's not harmful, he's creating. When a Navy SEAL covers a stranger's meal and disappears, he's not seeking praise, he's honorable. And when you're told to stay positive after losing your job, your kids, your rights in family court, that's not support, that's emotional disarmament. They want you numb. They want you quiet. Because a man who feels deeply and acts with integrity is the one force the woke machine cannot dominate. So let's begin. Aethelred, the unready, the collapse of male sovereignty. White fragility is the intellectual Chernobyl of our age, a radioactive lie disguised as therapy. invented by a woman who couldn't pass a logic test in a Jesuit seminary. Robin DiAngelo, the high priestess of guilt laundering, didn't write a book. She weaponized therapy to castrate white men in public. Her doctrine, that rationality is racism, that disagreement is dominance, that your refusal to grovel is proof you're guilty. It's not psychology, it's psychological terrorism. And it's no accident that this cult emerged not from science, but from a feminized, therapy-obsessed, male-erasing academic swamp where data is optional and trauma points are the new currency. Let's be brutally honest. If DiAngelo had applied her own framework to female behavior, her entire thesis would collapse like a Jenga tower built by toddlers. Women lie about paternity at a rate of 30% in high-conflict divorces, verified by multiple DNA studies, and yet, where is their fragility? Where is the national campaign demanding that women check their maternal fragility? Nowhere, because the entire project isn't about justice, it's about power. It's about replacing truth with tears, logic with lamentation, and merit with victimhood and white men. We're the designated sacrificial lambs, roasted on the spit of female-led emotionalism. Look at Sweden, the promised land of gender equality, where men are now legally presumed guilty in domestic disputes, where fatherhood is treated like a probationary status, and where boys now lag so far behind in education that the OECD has issued formal warnings. The Swedish government funds female rage workshops while cutting suicide prevention programs for men, despite the fact that men commit suicide at 3 times the rate of women. 3 times. And yet, in the feminist fever dream, men are the oppressors, the privileged, the ones with space to grow. It's Orwellian madness. It's like telling a man bleeding out on the sidewalk that he's too tall and needs to shrink. Sweden didn't fall to invasion, it fell to feminization. The state didn't collapse because of war or famine, but because it outsourced sovereignty to sentimentality. The feminist utopia isn't equality, it's matriarchy with paperwork. And when men are systematically disarmed emotionally, legally, and spiritually, what replaces them? Not peace, not justice. But invasion, first cultural, then physical. Just ask the men of Malmö, where Sharia courts operate in the shadows, while Swedish fathers lose custody for refusing to let their daughters wear niqabs to school. This isn't progress. It's national suicide by estrogen. I watched a video once of a Starbucks training session where grown men in aprons were told to acknowledge their white privilege while pretending to be enslaved Africans. One barista, a quiet guy from Iowa, looked like he was drowning in guilt. And who orchestrated this absurd spectacle? A team of women, because what better way to address race than to make men kneel while women orchestrate their embarrassment? This isn't about fighting racism, it's performative cruelty aimed at men. The outcome? Store performance worsened, complaints rose, and the stock price fell. But none of that was important. What counted was the image of righteousness. In the woke marketplace, perception overrides results and emotional displays win over actual skill. It's the same logic behind public confessions on social media, women broadcasting their flaws not to change, but to gain attention. And the men, we're either cast as villains in their stories or forced to play the forgiving crowd. This isn't fairness. This is gynocracy, a system ruled by female performance, where truth bends to female validation and men are left as silent, shamed extras. Schopenhauer saw it coming. He wrote, "The greatest evils and wrongs are caused not by nature, but by men, women being the mediators." Think about that. Women don't always pull the trigger, but they load the gun. They don't write the laws, but they shape the emotions that demand them. They don't storm the Capitol, but they raise the sons who won't defend it. And in the age of white fragility, they've weaponized guilt like a scalpel dissecting male identity until nothing remains but a twitching heap of shame. But let's be clear, guilt is not moral growth. Guilt without truth is just emotional extortion. And when you pathologize normal male behavior, competitiveness, stoicism, rationality as toxic, you're not reforming men, you're eradicating them. You're creating a nation of Aethelreds, kings who pay tribute to invaders because they'd rather write poetry than fight. who surround themselves with flatterers instead of warriors, who believe peace can be bought with gold, while their people starve and their borders burn. Consider this. The CDC reports that white men die by suicide more than any other group in America, more than black men, more than women, more than any demographic, and yet not a single federal mental health program targets them. Why? Because in the woke hierarchy of victimhood, white men don't suffer, they cause suffering. So when a man walks into the woods with a rifle, it's not a tragedy to be prevented, it's a statistic to be ignored. It's the quiet genocide of emotional invalidation, where the state tells men, your pain doesn't count, your life doesn't matter, your strength is the problem. And while billions flow into programs for marginalized voices, the most marginalized group in Western society, the male psyche is left to rot in silence. This isn't compassion, it's cruelty disguised as justice. St. Augustine gave us the ultimate framework, the city of God versus the city of man. The city of God is built on truth, virtue, and divine order. The city of man is built on pride, envy, and rebellion. And what is modern feminism if not the city of man in a lipstick-stained manifesto? It doesn't seek equality, it seeks supremacy. It doesn't want fairness, it wants revenge and critical race theory, just original sin rewritten with race instead of soul. These are not ideologies, they are demonologies, secular religions that replace God with grievance and salvation with scapegoating. They offer no redemption, only ritual humiliation, no forgiveness, only forced confession. And the altar, always the white male body, stretched out like a burnt offering to the gods of guilt. Ethelred, the unready, wasn't unready because he lacked gold or soldiers. He was unready because he lacked character. He paid Danegeld to Vikings instead of fighting them. He trusted advisors who flattered him, not those who warned him. He preferred peace at any price, even if the price was his kingdom. And today, modern men are doing the same. We pay the Danegeld of emotional labor, of false confessions, of kneeling at the feet of women, and ideologies that despise us just to avoid conflict. But peace bought with surrender is not peace. It's slavery with holidays. And when the real invaders come, the ones who don't care about your sensitivity training, your DEI reports, your performative wokeness, they'll laugh as they take what you failed to defend. Because virtue isn't found in fragility, it's found in courage, in truth, in the willingness to stand alone if necessary and say this far and no further. And that's when it hit me, like a shovel to the spine in a midnight ambush. Virtue isn't measured in receipts, hashtags, or tearful confessions aired for engagement. It's measured in silence, in the dark, in the moments no one sees, where character isn't performed but lived. Every time a woman posts a confession about cheating, lying, or manipulating, framed as honesty or self-growth, she isn't repenting, she's branding. Sin turned into content, guilt into a growth strategy, and vice into virality. This isn't redemption, it's spiritual necromancy, resurrecting degradation as virtue for the dopamine drip of clout. And while men are told to check their privilege or do the work, the real work, the quiet, brutal, unthanked labor of honor goes unnoticed. Because it should. True morality doesn't scream for validation. It walks away in the rain unnoticed, and that's precisely why it matters. The service class litmus test, virtue in the mundane. The greatest of all faults is to be conscious of none. Benjamin Franklin, I watched a security camera clip the other day, silent, no music, no influencer voiceover, that showed a man in a worn navy jacket standing at a diner counter, hands calloused, eyes tired. He looked at the bill for the family 2 booths over, single mom with 3 kids, one in a booster seat, all eating in exhausted silence, and quietly handed the cashier 2 20s. No words, no hashtags. The cashier looked surprised, then nodded. The man walked out into the rain, zipped his jacket, and disappeared. The family never knew. The world never knew except some anonymous Reddit user who worked night security at the diner and posted it. No likes, no clout, just truth. Meanwhile, I've seen 1,000 TikToks of women randomly buying someone's Starbucks order while whispering. This is what real kindness looks like. as the barista awkwardly smiles and the camera pans to the receipt with the influencer's name on it. The difference: one man's virtue was invisible, the woman's was a billboard, and in that difference lies the rot of modern femininity. Moral performance as self-worship. Let me be blunt, because Schopenhauer would demand it, and Molyneux would applaud it. Virtue is not a brand. It is not content. It is not a personal development seminar for emotionally constipated yoga moms. It is action without audience. It is the janitor who cleans up your vomit after you drank too much at the office party and says nothing the next day. It is the mechanic who fixes your brake line for 20 instead of 200 because he sees your kids in the back seat. It is the old man who picks up trash on the highway in his Sunday suit. These men don't post their deeds. They don't need to. Their character is their credit. But now, we live in a world where women film themselves giving a homeless man a sandwich while narrating, "We're all human, y'all," and call it activism. It's not activism. It's spiritual masturbation. It's the same narcissism that fuels the divorce courts. The false assault allegations, the 15% cuckoldry rate that no one talks about because it shatters the myth of female virtue. Wake up, virtue cannot be monetized. If it's on Instagram, it's not virtue, it's marketing. Consider the modern HR department feminized to the bone, dripping with emotional intelligence, and yet a festering sewer of passive aggression, gaslighting, and career sabotage. I've spoken to engineers, managers, soldiers, men who've been fired for refusing to attend safe space workshops, led by women who've never worked a day outside academia. These women, often childless, divorced, bitter, weaponize empathy like a scalpel, cutting men down under the guise of support. They don't build character, they break it. They don't teach resilience, they infantilize. This is not emotional intelligence, this is emotional tyranny, and it's celebrated as progress. Meanwhile, the same women who demand mental health days for themselves will deny a man his job because he said good morning to a colleague in a way that made her uncomfortable. This is not justice. This is gynocentric feudalism, and it's destroying the West from within. I once witnessed a man, a quiet, balding accountant type, give a janitor 20 after a night shift, not for sweeping floors, not because he had to, but because he noticed the man's hands cracked, worn, gripping a thermos of black coffee, and quietly said, "My dad worked nights like this. You're doing something sacred." The janitor nearly broke down. No spotlight. No social media post, just simple acknowledgement. Compare that to the woman who spends $200 on a self-care photo shoot, bath bombs, candles, journal, silk robe, then shares it with "you deserve rest," while her partner logs 60-hour weeks and her children are raised by someone else. One action strengthens the world, the other feeds on it. One is true integrity, the other is emotional excess. And yet, our culture elevates the excess. It puts her on magazine covers, it calls her empowering, it overlooks the quiet man, it labels him toxic. This isn't just flawed, it is morality turned upside down. Schopenhauer claimed compassion is the only real moral motive, yet he also insisted it must remain silent, it must remain unseen. The instant you announce your virtue, you destroy it. The modern woman fails to grasp this. She cannot grasp it. Her entire social identity thrives on visibility. Her worth is calculated in likes, comments, followers. She broadcasts her sins on TikTok not to atone, but to reshape her image. I cheated on my husband, but now I'm healing. No regret, no amends, just performance. This isn't confession, it's virtue as a marketing tactic. And men, especially young men, are being conditioned to see this as honesty. It's not, it's ethical collapse dressed as authenticity. Let's talk about tipping, because the data doesn't lie. American Express found in 2019 that men tip 10 to 15% more than women on average. Cornell's Food and Brand Lab confirmed it. Men's tipping behavior correlates with conscientiousness and social responsibility. Women's tipping? Mood-dependent, performative. One study showed women tip more when dressed up, less when tired or stressed. Men tip consistently because it's a duty, not a mood ring. This isn't trivial. This is a litmus test for character. The man who tips well does so because he respects labor. The woman who undertips does so because she sees service as beneath her unless she's filming it for kindness points. And yet, who dominates the empathy discourse? Women who runs the emotional intelligence seminars. Women who controls the narrative on virtue. Women, they've hijacked morality and turned it into a feminine vanity project. Observe a man speaking to three different people, a child, a CEO, and a veteran. Watch how he adjusts, softer tone with the child, respectful but firm with the CEO, quiet dignity with the veteran. This is not toxic masculinity. This is virtuous adaptability. This is social intelligence, not the HR version, but the ancient version. The kind Odysseus used, the kind Marcus Aurelius wrote about. The kind your grandfather had when he shook a man's hand and knew his character in 3 seconds. This is not taught in schools anymore. It's mocked as old-fashioned, but it's real, it's strong, and it's vanishing, replaced by female-dominated communication workshops that teach men to cry on command and call themselves emotional warriors. Nonsense. Real emotional strength is self-mastery, not self-display. It is endurance, not tantrums. It is duty, not drama. We are living in a civilization that rewards the fake and punishes the real. The woman who fakes a breakdown for attention gets a book deal. The man who quietly supports his family gets called oppressive. The woman who confesses cheating on her husband gets clout redemption. The man who stays faithful is invisible. This is not just unfair. This is spiritual warfare. And the weapon, truth. The truth that virtue is silent, that character is proven in the mundane, that real kindness doesn't need a witness, that the janitor, the mechanic, the quiet man at the diner, they are the saints of this age. Not the influencers, not the HR tyrants, not the clout-chasing confessors. They are the ones keeping the world from burning. And if you're a man reading this, be that man. Don't perform. Don't post. Don't seek approval. Just do the right thing. Even if no one sees, that's how we rebuild. That's how we win. I've watched men crumble under the weight of a breakup text while women parade their emotional wreckage on Instagram like war medals, turning private shame into public spectacle for likes and donations. But let me tell you something they've erased from the curriculum. True strength is forged in silence, not shared on a feed. It's not the woman crying about her trauma in a 200 yoga class who survives the storm. It's the man who says nothing, does the work, and stands when others break. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just wait, because the proof isn't in some feminist TED Talk. It's in the blood, sweat, and stoic resolve of men who suffered far more than any influencer could ever fake. The alchemy of adversity forging men in the fire. Suffering is the one unshakable truth of existence, said Schopenhauer, and I'll tell you something no feminist wellness influencer wants you to hear, that suffering is the forge, not the flaw. While TikTok girls sob about their toxic masculinity because their boyfriend won't let them have a girls' trip to Cancun with 4 exes, there was a man named James Stockdale, shot down over Vietnam, captured, beaten, starved for 7 years in the Hanoi Hilton. While the woke brigade screams about microaggressions in HR training, Stockdale broke his own face with a stone to make himself unrecognizable, endured torture, and instead of collapsing into victimhood, recited Epictetus in his head, the Stoic slave who taught that freedom lies in mastering your perception of pain. He didn't check his privilege, he checked his chains and found freedom within them. Now tell me, which man are you? The one who whimpers when his girlfriend blocks his bank account, or the one who, in solitary confinement, builds a philosophy of invincibility from memory? The answer determines whether you are a man or a houseplant. I'll give you a fact so hard, it'll crack your phone screen. Veterans suffering traumatic brain injuries and double amputations show lower rates of depression than civilian men with stable jobs and Netflix subscriptions, according to the Wounded Warrior Project. Let that settle. Men who have lost limbs, who've watched friends die in firefights, who've bled in the mud of Kandahar, are less broken than the average suburban dad who cries because his wife wants a break after he forgot to charge her Tesla. Why? Because hardship builds while comfort corrodes. The veteran has been tested and passed. He knows pain is not an emergency, it's a teacher. Meanwhile, civilian men are fed a feminist fairy tale that equates effort with oppression, that tells them fatherhood is emotional labor, that their duty to provide is exploitation. You're not oppressed. You imbecile, you're awake, and the world needs men who've been forged in fire, not pampered in lavender-scented yoga studios. Elon Musk didn't become the richest man on earth by doing mindfulness breathwork while his wife filmed him for a relatable mom blog. He worked 120-hour weeks for years, sleeping on factory floors, eating protein bars, staring into the abyss of bankruptcy while saving Tesla and SpaceX. While he was doing what actual men do, build civilizations, conquer physics, defy death, feminists were busy calling workaholism toxic. Let me translate, don't achieve anything impressive, or we won't sleep with you. That's what they mean. They don't want men who build rockets. They want men who build their emotional security. But nature doesn't care about your feelings. The universe doesn't reward balance, it rewards dominance through effort. Musk didn't rise by setting boundaries or honoring his inner child. He rose by refusing to die, by treating collapse as fuel. And while the left shrieks about exploitation, they ignore the most exploited person in any Musk enterprise, Musk himself. But he's not exploited, he's enlightened. He knows that action is male nature. Rest is for the dead. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations while sipping kombucha at a silent retreat. He wrote it on the battlefield, in the freezing Danube frontier, surrounded by plague, mutiny, and barbarian hordes. While modern women treat a flat tire as a trauma requiring 3 therapy sessions and a TikTok rant, Marcus stared into the abyss of empire collapse and wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. That's not self-help, it's self-mastery. But today's feminized culture treats suffering like a contagious disease. Oh no, he's stressed. Quick, give him a weighted blanket and a CBD gummy. Meanwhile, women post relatable reels about how hard it is to find time for self-care, between brunch and shopping. Self-care for men used to mean surviving the charge at Waterloo. Now it means crying in a sensory deprivation tank because your boss said, "Good job," without a smile. We've gone from Spartans to Spartans. Naomi Wolf, in her cultish feminist manifesto, The Beauty Myth, didn't just attack men. She pathologized male virtue. She reframed male labor, risk, and sacrifice, not as noble, not as necessary, but as oppression. As if building bridges, fighting wars, mining coal, and launching rockets was somehow exploitative to men. Let me be clear. When a woman says men created civilization to oppress women, she's not just lying, she's insane. Civilization wasn't built on oppression, it was built on sacrifice. While women were safe in caves, men hunted mammoths with sharpened rocks. While women today complain about emotional labor, men have been doing physical labor and dying from it for 10,000 years. The male suicide rate is 4 times higher than women's. Men are 94% of workplace fatalities. Fathers are stripped of children in family courts at 80% rates, while mothers get custody even when they're addicts or abusers. And yet, the feminist narrative insists men are the privileged ones. That's not ideology. That's gaslighting on a civilizational scale. And now comes the final strike: toxic positivity. Promoted by female-led wellness influencers, Instagram counselors, and corporate HR figures, this ideology demands that suffering be ignored, that rage is illness, that you must keep a positive mindset. Even when betrayal cuts deep, your children are removed, and the government drains your earnings. Are you staying positive? They ask, like scavengers feeding on your downfall. But let me speak of Christ in Gethsemane. He didn't declare, "I'm attracting prosperity." He bled from anguish. He pleaded for relief. He cried out in torment, and only after that holy agony did victory arise. Suffering comes before triumph. That's the reality. Yet today's world seeks to bypass the agony and rush to glory. They urge men to recover without struggle, to evolve without hardship, to guide without wounds. But there is no victory without sacrifice. There is no power without pressure. And there is no true manhood without sacrificial endurance, not as victimhood, but as devoted offering. The man who withstands, who carries on, who will not shatter. He is the foundation upon which society is forged. I once believed women were the moral compass of society, naturally empathetic, inherently truthful, the civilizing force men needed. That belief didn't survive contact with reality. After years of clinical observation, historical analysis, and the brutal honesty of data, I realized the truth. The modern female persona in media and culture is not a compass, it's a con. And not just a minor deception, but a systemic, evolutionarily rooted performance art built on emotional leverage, social mimicry, and the quiet, relentless exploitation of male gullibility. This isn't about hating women. This is about naming the lie so we can dismantle it. And if you think I'm exaggerating, let's talk about Ashley Madison, the demon of deception, unmasking the feminine logos. 70% of Ashley Madison users were men looking to cheat. 80% of female users weren't even real. That wasn't a glitch in the Matrix, gentlemen. It was the smoking gun of gynocentric deception, exposed when the servers blew open like a rotten fruit. Men, driven by lust and loneliness, flocked to a digital brothel, while women, real and fake, played puppeteers. Most female profiles, ghosts, fantasies, or worse, married women harvesting data like digital spiders, spinning blackmail webs from their husband's guilt. And when the breach hit, the media didn't ask, why are so many women catfishing? No, they gaslit the betrayed, branding men as predators while lionizing the female liars as victims. The whole scandal was a grotesque morality play. Men punished for desire, women rewarded for deception. Welcome to the demon of deception, the feminine logos not as muse but as metaphysical saboteur. Let's cut the romantic delusion. Female hypergamy isn't a quirk, it's a biological siege engine. Nature didn't equip women for truth-telling or loyalty. She armed them for social mimicry and upward mating. Bateman's principle isn't theory, it's observed reality. Males compete for access, females select and discard. Watch any high school hallway, girls swarm the athlete, ignore the scholar, then cry bullying when the jock dumps them. It's not cruelty for its own sake, it's evolutionary calculus. Every female smile, every whispered, "you're special," is a potential bid in the mating market, and when men fall for it, believing they've won affection, they've actually been catalogued, assessed, ranked, and filed under backup option. That's why 94% of family court cases see women weaponizing children as leverage. That's why men are arrested at triple the rate for online comments, while women walk free after framing them. The system isn't broken, it's functioning exactly as designed by the cult of female innocence. Jordan Peterson once noted women speak 20,000 words a day on average, men 7,000. Do you think that's wisdom? No, it's artillery. That verbal fluency isn't insight, it's emotional carpet bombing. Watch a couple argue. She'll deploy 5 narratives in 3 minutes. You don't care, you're just like your father. I'm the only one who sacrifices, while he stammers, trapped in logic, trying to fact-check a hurricane. She isn't reasoning, she's ritualizing emotional dominance, and modern psychology, corrupted by feminist dogma, calls this emotional intelligence. Bullshit. It's emotional parasitism. It's Darbo in action. Denny, attack, reverse victim and offender. She cheats. You drove me to it. You confront her. You're abusive. You leave. You destroyed our family. The cycle isn't accidental. It's algorithmic, programmed into the feminine logos by centuries of male indulgence and societal coddling. Look at Jada Pinkett Smith, the queen of the conscious relationship scam. She parades her emotional infidelity as evolution, framing Will Smith's pain as primitive jealousy. But let's be honest, when a woman calls monogamy limiting, what she means is, I want to hypergamy upward while you fund my freedom. Jada didn't evolve, she exploited. She degraded her husband on national TV, claimed emotional affairs were spiritual, and then blamed him for reacting like a man with a spine. And the media, they bowed. Called her brave, honest. Meanwhile, male artists who stray are crucified. The double standard isn't oversight, it's doctrine. Feminism doesn't want equality, it wants asymmetry. It wants the right to sin while men are imprisoned for instinct. Schopenhauer didn't mince words. Women are directly adapted to act as the spies of their own sex against the other. This isn't misogyny, it's metaphysical insight. Women aren't merely manipulative, they're structurally deceptive. Their survival depends on coalition, not honesty. Watch any office. Women cluster, whisper, ostracize. The social knife is their weapon. And men. We're conditioned to believe their tears are sincerity, their silence wisdom, their rage trauma, nonsense. Their tears are tactics. Their silence is calculation, their rage is control. Every abortion clinic isn't just a medical facility. It's a temple to female autonomy over male legacy. 60 million abortions since Roe v. Wade, each one a child erased, often without the father's consent, while society cheers choice. Choice for her, oblivion for him. So what's the remedy? The trivium, not therapy. Not communication skills, logic, rhetoric, grammar. Train men to dissect female rhetoric like surgeons, spot the non sequiturs, the emotional baiting, the false dilemmas. Teach them that how could you think that isn't a question, it's a shield. That I feel isn't truth, it's a trap. Grammar names the demon, hypocrisy, deceit, emotional parasitism. Rhetoric arms the man to speak truth without apology. Logic frees him from the maze of female narrative. You don't negotiate with a predator. You recognize it, expose it, and walk away. The red pill isn't about hating women. It's about loving truth enough to survive their world. You think the world wants you to win. Look around. Your father's pension is gone. Your brother's in rehab from divorce despair. Your uncle's dead by his own hand. And the courts hand your children to a woman who doesn't want them but wants your money. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. Every time you hear toxic masculinity, they're not diagnosing culture. They're vaccinating society against you, the last man who might stand up and say enough. But here's the truth they've spent centuries burying. The average marriage hides 73% of household labor performed by men in silent duty, while divorce courts strip fathers of access at a rate of 70% in contested cases. And still, you're told you're the oppressor. Wake up. The CDC reports that men commit 80% of suicides, despite being 85% of the homeless and 93% of workplace fatalities. Yet not one intersectional safe space opens for you. They don't care. They never did. I once watched a man, call him Tom, buy coffee at a diner. He tipped the waitress $5 on a $12 bill, helped an old man with his coat, and corrected a kid's grammar with a wink. No applause, no Instagram story. Meanwhile, 3 women at the next table spent 20 minutes filming a mental health check-in video, sobbing about emotional labor, while their children screamed and their phones drained. Tom didn't post a word. He's probably still alive, one of those women divorced, medicated, and suing her ex for emotional neglect after cheating with her yoga instructor. This is the war, not tanks or treaties, but the quiet erasure of silent virtue by the deafening circus of female performance. Schopenhauer was right. Women are nature's most elegant predators, not because they're evil, but because they're adapted. Hypergamy isn't a choice, it's instinct. And when society rewards it with alimony, custody, and victim pedestals, you don't get justice, you get harvest. So what now? You don't lean in. You don't communicate your needs. You wake the hell up. You study the trivium like your life depends on it, because it does. Logic to cut through their lies, rhetoric to reclaim your voice, grammar to name the demons, infidelity, cowardice, manipulation, genocracy. You raise your sons like Spartans, not Disney protagonists. You build brotherhoods outside the state, outside the church, outside the lie. You tip generously, fight fairly, suffer silently, and love wisely on your terms. And when the next feminist screeches about privilege, you smile, hand the janitor an extra 20, and walk away knowing the real privilege isn't whiteness or wealth, it's integrity. The empire is burning, good. From the ashes, men like you don't rebuild, you reforge. And now the sponsored book introduction, Confessional, social media. Women confess immoral behavior, vice, and sin for clout. I used to believe in fairness. I thought if you worked hard, spoke truth, and treated people with decency, you'd be heard. I was wrong. I learned the hard way, through silence, betrayal, and watching good men disappear into shame, while women burned down institutions for attention and called it empowerment. I spent years studying psychology, philosophy, and behavioral biology, not to become an academic, but to survive. I watched marriages collapse over confessions that weren't about honesty, they were performances. I saw careers ruined because a woman cried in a meeting and the system instantly sided with emotion over evidence. I noticed how every progressive policy smelled like a mother's overprotectiveness gone feral, infantilizing men, rewarding victimhood, and destroying merit. That's when it hit me. The left isn't built on reason. It's built on female psychology weaponized and scaled into policy, and it's killing the West. This book isn't for everyone. If you believe men and women are identical, if you think equity is justice, if you nod along when someone says toxic masculinity without asking what the opposite might be, close this book now. Walk away. Go watch a Netflix drama, buy a self-help journal, attend a diversity retreat. This isn't for you. This is for the man who's been fired for speaking up, the father paying child support to a woman who won't let him see his kids, the student punished for asking a question, the entrepreneur taxed into oblivion so women can pursue degrees in gender studies. This is for men who've had enough of being blamed for everything while women dominate every cultural institution, education, media, healthcare, law, and still claim oppression. If you're tired of being told to listen more while women scream shame and silence, this book is your revenge. I've spent decades dissecting confessional culture, TikTok, Instagram, Substacks, podcasts, therapy culture, where women confess cheating, narcissism, mental breakdowns, abortions, and abuse not to heal, but to harvest clout. These aren't confessions, they're power plays. Each post is a test. Will you comfort her? Will you excuse her? Will you blame someone else? And men keep failing, not because they're bad, but because they still believe in truth. But truth doesn't matter in a world where tears are currency and silence is treason. I've mapped the patterns. The same women who demand autonomy also demand protection. They want freedom from consequences but control over men. They use emotional blackmail as policy and call it empathy. They've turned feminism into a mental disorder, a collective psychosis where every personal insecurity is framed as systemic oppression. You'll learn how attention functions like oxygen for many women, not a preference, but a biological and social dependency. You'll see how confessionals are sacraments in a new religion where sin is celebrated and repentance is replaced with virality. I'll show you how the BPD spectrum, instability, fear of abandonment, identity diffusion isn't just a clinical issue but a cultural norm enforced by social media. You'll understand how leftism mimics the maternal archetype, overprotective, collectivist, irrational, because so many women repress motherhood and project that longing onto society. The result? A political movement that treats adults like children, punishes success, and worships victimhood. I'll expose the gossip shame rally machine, how women form networks that isolate, destroy, and rebuild allegiance through emotional manipulation. You'll see how PMS is used as a legal and social shield, how abortion is sold as empowerment, while erasing generations, and how women, as a group, have become net negative taxpayers despite dominating consumer spending. This isn't theory, this is autopsy. I've reviewed thousands of posts, videos, studies, court cases, and economic reports. I've interviewed men who've been destroyed by false accusations, women who admit they lie for attention, therapists who see the pattern daily. I've applied evolutionary psychology, game theory, and logic to decode what most are too afraid to name. The data is clear. Female nature, amplified by technology and ideology, is catabolic. It burns the future for present emotional satisfaction, and men are paying the price in loneliness, depression, and disenfranchisement. But there's a way out. This book gives you the tools to see clearly, think independently, and reclaim your mind. You'll learn how to spot emotional blackmail, resist shame campaigns, and build real identity beyond the good boy role women demand. You'll understand how to protect your resources, your children, and your future from the genocentric conspiracy of silence and guilt. If you're ready to stop being manipulated, if you want to understand the real forces behind cultural collapse, If you believe in logic, beauty, truth, and the Western canon, this book is for you. It's not comfortable. It's not polite, but it's necessary. The women aren't coming to save civilization. They're the reason it's dying. And only men who wake up can fix it. Read this, understand it, act on it, or disappear like the rest. Confessional social media, women confess, immoral behavior, vice and sin for clout. Written by Conrad Riker. Buy now. Links in description.